What the Master Would Not Discuss. Xin Qixie. V. by Yuan Mei. Volume 3. Prince Li Jie. In Wuchang County of Huzhou, there is a temple dedicated to a deity known as Prince Li Jie. It is said that during the late Yuan Dynasty, a brave young man led a local militia in rebellion and died in battle against General Zhang Shicheng. The locals, in mourning for him, built this temple in his honor. The name Li Jie reflects his bravery and heroism. In the 42nd year of the Qianlong era, a local man named Chen went to the temple to offer incense and then hanged himself. His brother, Chen Zhengzhong, who was a man of integrity, believed that the temple should be a place for deities and not inhabited by ghosts. He went to inquire about this, only to be told by the temple priest that 2 people had already hanged themselves there that year. Enraged, Chen Zhengzhong led his servants armed with shovels into the temple and destroyed the statue of the deity. The locals were terrified, fearing that they had offended the spirit and that this would bring misfortune upon them. They then filed a complaint with the authorities against Chen Zhengzhong for his recklessness. Chen Zhengzhong explained the circumstances and pointed out that the name Prince Li Jie was not mentioned in any historical records or local chronicles, indicating that this deity was not a legitimate spirit. Having destroyed the statue, he was responsible for provoking the anger of the locals. He offered to pay to rebuild the temple and erect a statue of Guan Yu instead, to pray for blessings for the community. County Magistrate Mu Jia's judgment was correct. He approved the case, and it was closed. For 2 months thereafter, the temple remained peaceful. Suddenly, a girl from a family surnamed Sun, who was nearly of marriageable age, fell ill with a strange disease. She began to act strangely, with her eyes skewed and eyebrows raised. She claimed to be the Princess Li Jie, and claimed that evil people had removed the temple idols, leaving her with nowhere to dwell, and she needed food and drink. Whenever her family was slow in offering her what she demanded, she would beat her own cheeks and wail in pain. Her father went to Magistrate Mu Jia to complain about her behavior. Mu Jia, furious, took a peach branch and went to the girl's home, shouting, "Every wrong has a perpetrator. I am the one who destroyed your idols. You don't seek revenge against me, but instead harass innocent young women, demanding food and drink. What kind of bravery or nobility is that? You are truly a shameless wretch. Get lost." The girl let out a frightened cry. "The red-faced villain has come again. I'm leaving. I'm leaving." Instantly, she came to her senses. Her father then invited Magistrate Mu Jia to stay at their home, and from then on, she was safe and sound. Magistrate Mu Jia occasionally left home, and the strange incidents resumed. So he and his father decided to find a young man from the neighborhood to marry the girl. After that, the strange occurrences ceased, and her illness also disappeared. Xin Qixie, one summer. Xin Qixie, a scholar from Nanchang, lay naked in the temple of the local deity to cool off. Upon returning home, he fell seriously ill. His wife believed that they had offended the deity and prepared food and incense to apologize for his wrongdoing. Surprisingly, his illness did indeed improve. She urged him to go to the temple to thank the deity, but Chu Fai, angered, instead filed a complaint with the city god's temple, accusing the deity of deceiving them into offering food and using its power to act maliciously. After 10 days of such offerings, there was still no change. Angered, Kielsai filed another complaint, accusing the city god of being corrupt and allowing his subordinates to commit crimes. That night, he dreamed that a notice was posted on the temple wall that read, "The deity deceived people into offering food, which is a violation of official ethics. Therefore, the deity is dismissed from office. Chu has shown disrespect for gods and ghosts and loves to file lawsuits. He is to be punished with 30 lashes in Xinjiang County. Wary, Qixie thought that since he was from Nanchang County, even if the punishment was imposed, it would not apply to him in Xinjiang. Not long after, it rained, and lightning struck the temple of the local deity. Qixie grew concerned and dared not leave his home. More than a month later, when the governor of Jiangxi visited the temple to offer prayers, an enemy of Qixie attacked him with an axe. Officials gathered to capture the assailant. Qixie, curious about this strange event, went to investigate. The magistrate of Xinjiang noticed his unusual demeanor and demanded to know who he was. Qixie stammered and could not speak. He was wearing a long gown but had neither hat nor belt. The magistrate, angered, whipped him 30 times in public. Only then did Qixie reveal his identity as Scholar Chu. The magistrate regretted his actions and recommended him for a position as an educator in Fengcheng County. Touching the dragon, Old Lady A, Yaogong San Chen, a magistrate from Hongzhou, was known for his skills in surgery. It is said that one midnight, while collecting herbs, he fell into a ravine while drunk. He clutched a rock with his hand, which was slippery, but covered in saliva. The hand began to move, and he mistook it for a snake. After a while, he managed to climb back up. The snake had eyes that shone like lamps, and upon closer inspection, he saw that it had horns on its head. When he touched the spot where the saliva had been, the wound healed immediately. His descendants passed down this story, calling her Old Lady A, who touched the dragon. She was also known as Yao Luan Er because she carried a basket while collecting herbs. She never accepted any gratitude for healing people's illnesses. Despite this, she rose to the rank of second-rank official, and people believed this was a reward for her virtuous deeds. Water Lily Hall. During the examination period at the Hangzhou Academy, students would form bonds to support each other's candidatures. One student named Cheng got up early in the morning, dressed formally, and left his home. However, he returned home and sat there, murmuring to himself as if talking to someone. His family was puzzled but did not dare to ask questions. He left again and did not return for a long time. When the students from the academy went to his home to check on him, they found him in a state of shock. A barrel maker helped him back, but his clothes were wet, and there was green mud on his face. He stared blankly without saying a word. I poured ginger juice over it and applied cinnabar to it, and then it began to make a sound. It said, "When I first left home, a man in black on the street bowed to me, and I became unconscious, following him accordingly. The man said, 'Why not go home to pack your belongings and join me for a visit to the Water Lily Hall?' So I went home with him, tying my personal key around my waist. Together we left through the Yongjin Gate and arrived by West Lake, where I saw a magnificent palace floating on the water, with several beautifully dressed women singing and dancing inside. The man in black pointed to me and said, 'This is the Water Lily Hall. Which is more enjoyable, watching these beautiful women here or attending the Minglun Hall?' I replied, 'This place is more enjoyable.' Then I stepped into the water. Suddenly an old man with white hair shouted from behind, 'Evil ghost! Do not go! Do not go!' Upon closer look, it was my deceased father. The man in black then started fighting with my father. My father was at risk of losing, but just then a barrel maker came by. It was as if a gust of hot wind blew into the water. Both the man in black and the Water Lily Hall disappeared, and thus I was able to return home. My family thanked the barrel maker profusely and asked him how he managed to save me. The maker said, 'That day, a family surnamed Yang in Yongjin Gate called me to fix a barrel. As I passed by West Lake, it was hot. and I saw an umbrella left on the ground. I wanted to pick it up to shield myself from the sun. When I reached the umbrella, I heard noises coming from the water and realized someone was in trouble. I helped them to get out. Your husband was struggling to stay afloat for a long time before he managed to free himself and return. His wife said that person was a ghost that wasn't actually dead, while my husband was already deceased. Why do humans insist on treating ghosts as humans, and why do ghosts insist on treating humans as ghosts? Suddenly, a voice from the sky replied, I too was once a scholar studying the classics. It is said, a kind person helps others to stand and achieve what they wish to achieve. We ghosts, however, seem to enjoy causing others to suffer. Why is that wrong? With that, the voice laughed and disappeared. The case of the salt ship set afire. During the Qianlong era, in the year of Dinghai, they were repairing the Chenghuang Temple in Zhenjiang. 3 men surnamed Yan, Gao, and Lu were in charge of the project and kept a ledger to record contributions for the renovation. One morning, after it had rained, a woman arrived with a sedan chair, taking out the envelope of silver, and handed it to Yan, saying, This is 50 taels of silver for the temple renovation. Please record it. Yan asked for her name and address for proper documentation, but she replied, Such a small act of kindness, there's no need to leave a name. Just record the amount of silver. After she left, Yan explained the situation to Gao and Lu, and discussed whether it was appropriate to record her contribution. Lu laughed and said, Why record it? Since no one is watching, it wouldn't be a problem for the 3 of us to divide the money equally. Gao agreed, but Yan thought this was unjust and tried to stop them. However, they ignored him and divided the silver between themselves. When the renovation was completed, only Yan was aware of this incident. 8 years later, in the year of Yue, Gao died, followed by Lu. Yan never mentioned this incident to anyone else. In the spring of the year of Wushu, Yan fell ill and was visited by 2 officials who showed him a warrant stating, There is a woman who has accused you in front of the Chenghuang Temple. We have been sent to arrest you. Yan asked what the accusation was, but the officials themselves were unaware. They accompanied Yan to the temple gate, where the atmosphere was cold and solemn, unlike the usual lively fortune-telling and divination activities. On both sides of the gate, the former residences of the temple workers had now become barracks for the officials. Passing the Xian Bridge and reaching the second gate, they saw a man in shackles shouting, Brother Yan, are you here? It was Gao. He cried to Yan, I passed away in the year of Yue, and for 4 years since then I have been suffering the punishments of this life. Just as I was about to be released and reincarnated, I was discovered for stealing money intended for the temple renovation and am now being arrested for interrogation. Yan asked, This incident happened over a decade ago. How could it be discovered now? Could it be that that woman reported me? Gao replied. No, that woman passed away last February. All ghosts, regardless of their merits or sins, are sent to the Chenghuang Temple. That woman was a good person. She was brought here along with several other good ghosts for judgment. In the city god's play it is asked, Throughout your life you always hastened to do good. Last year when our office was being repaired, you were the only one who objected to the expense. Why? The woman replied, On June 20th of that year, I delivered 50 taels of silver to the public office, but it was a scholar surnamed Yan who took it. Feeling that my act of kindness was insignificant, I refused to have my name recorded in the official records, which is why the revered god may not be aware of it. The god then ordered the officials in charge of justice to investigate the matter in detail, and soon all the facts came to light. Because my brother had advised against it, he has been brought here for questioning. Yan was asked, "Where is your brother now?" Yan replied, "He committed grave sins during his lifetime and is now in the underworld. His fate is not limited to just the theft of that silver." Before he could finish speaking, 2 officials arrived, announcing, "The Lord has taken his seat." Yan and the others stood below the steps. 2 young men carrying colorful banners led a woman into the hall, and they also brought along a man in chains. It was Lu. The city god said to Yan, "May I hand over the silver given by the kind woman to you?" Yan recounted everything as it truly happened. The city god then said to the judge, "This matter concerns the repair of the office, and it is not my sole authority to decide. We should report it to the great emperor of Dongyou for a final judgment. Please prepare the documents promptly and send them on their way." He also ordered the 2 young men to return the woman. The officials escorted Yan, along with Gao and Lu, out of the temple. On the way, they saw people wearing women's clothes or men's clothing, some with salt-filled bags on their heads, and others draped in sheep or dog skins. Such sights were everywhere. They heard people saying, "In the 36th year of the Qianlong reign, during the fire at Yizheng, those who died in the fire or by drowning have now completed their karmic cycle and can be reborn." The officials told Yan, "It's a rare occasion with the emperor presiding in court. We must quickly submit the documents." Soon after, they shouted, "The documents have been submitted. Everyone, come forward to hear the verdict." Yan and the others hurried forward. Before they could settle down, they heard the judge declare, "Gao, for stealing the silver from the kind woman, your crime is minor, so you shall be punished with the prescribed punishment by the city god. Lu, for inciting lawsuits and harming innocent people, your crime is severe. In addition to the prescribed punishment, you shall be burned to death by the fire god." Yan, being a gentleman whose life was not yet over, was ordered to be sent back to the living world. Upon waking from this dream, Yan found himself lying in bed, and his family had already begun mourning his death, saying, "Sir, you have been dead for 3 days." Since his heart was not yet cold to the idea of death, they had stayed by his side. Yan recounted the entire dream to his family, but they did not believe him. A year later, on an August night, Lu's house caught fire, and his coffin was indeed burned to ashes. In another story from the same region, in the village of Kaoyangku in the northeast of Yancheng, Sun Zicheng's wife, surnamed Xie, gave birth to a son on New Year's Eve, whom they named Nianzi. At 18, while carrying chickens into the city, a sudden whirlwind blew all the chickens out of the cage and carried them into the sky. Nianzi was terrified and fell ill upon returning home. During this critical time, his mother went into labor, and no one was there to take care of her. In a daze, Nianzi was swept away by the wind. Suddenly, he fell into a deep pool from within a red gate, but he felt no pain. He noticed that his body was smaller than usual, and it was difficult for him to open his eyes. The sounds he heard seemed to be those of his parents. Thinking it was a dream, he accepted it calmly. Meanwhile, Xie's delivery went well, but when she took a moment to check on Nianzi, she found him dead and cried bitterly. Nianzi awoke, not understanding what had happened. He heard his mother crying and saying, "Because of this child, my beloved Nianzi is dead." Overcome with grief, she cried incessantly. Nianzi then realized he had been reborn and, fearing his mother's distress, shouted, I am not dead." Upon hearing his son's voice, Xie was so shocked that she died shortly after. Without milk to feed the baby, Sun Zicheng fed him porridge. The child grew teeth in 3 months and could walk in 5 months. They named him Ze Ding, reborn. He is 16 years old this year, as told by the magistrate of Yanchang. Another tale mentions that when Chen Gongshu was serving as the governor of Tingzhang, a bell that could hold 100 stones floated onto the sea. People regarded it as an omen of good fortune and reported it to the authorities, who then built a tall tower to the west of the city to hang the bell there. Someone struck the bell, and the sound was heard for 10 miles around. A local elder named Li was appointed to guard this building. Suddenly, there were repeated tsunami-like waves at sea. Lord Chen thought these were in response to the bell sounds. He ordered the county magistrate to seal the building with a stamp, and strictly instructed Elder Li not to allow anyone to strike the bell again. There was a handsome young man who often visited the building, chatting with Elder Li. Whenever he needed food or other items, they would appear out of nowhere. Elder Li, suspecting that the young man was a fox spirit, became greedy and begged, "Since you are a celestial being, why do you only give me food and drink?" The young man explained, "Wealth is predestined, and your fate is poor. You cannot obtain it. Even if you did, it would bring disaster to you, and you would later regret it." Despite Elder Li's persistent requests, the young man laughed and agreed. Soon after, a large ingot of gold appeared on the table. From then on, the young man no longer appeared. Elder Li was overjoyed and hid the ingot in his chest. One day, when the county magistrate passed by and heard the bell ringing, he angrily blamed Elder Li for not keeping a proper watch and whipped him 15 times. Elder Li had no way to defend himself. Upon returning, he found that the seal on the building was still intact, but having been whipped, he felt dejected. Not long after, the magistrate passed by again, and the bell in the building rang chaotically. When he sent servants to check, there was no one there. The magistrate realized, could there be a demon in the building? With no other choice, Elder Li told him the truth. The magistrate took the ingot and found that it matched the items in the storage. After returning it to its place, the bell stopped ringing. The land god filed a complaint. In Tangli, Dongting Mountain, the Shu family was wealthy and built a garden, running out of space. There was a land god temple to the east that had long been neglected. They secretly bought it from the monks and began constructing pavilions and terraces. More than a year later, while Mrs. Han was combing her hair, she suddenly fell to the ground. Even the maid who helped her also fell. After a while, the maid got up, placed a large chair in the hall, and helped Mrs. Han sit facing south, then said loudly, "I am the god of Suzhou's city wall. I have been sent by the city god to investigate your illegal purchase of the land god temple." After speaking, the maid bowed and introduced, "The water god of Taihu Lake also wishes to be present. Then the patrol god of Tangdi also wishes to be present." Mrs. Han nodded in acknowledgement to each. Finally, "The plaintiff, the land god, is here." Mrs. Han ordered the Shu family's servants and maids to line up according to their roles. Those who did not obey were struck with a stick. When the name of the person who bought the land was called out, it was her husband. She asked, "How much did you pay? Who were the witnesses?" His accent was not the usual Wu dialect, but rather that of a man from the regions of Yan and Zhao. Her husband, frightened, fell to the ground and wished to return the land and rebuild the original temple. Mrs. Han, who was illiterate, suddenly grabbed paper and pen and wrote, "It is not right for a human to take the land of a god. Moreover, the land god is old and poor, having slept outdoors for over a year. It is truly pitiable. He has repeatedly complained to the city god but was not heard. With no other choice, he appealed to the city god. Now that you have regretted your actions, you are allowed to return the temple, and you may offer sacrifices and incense to him. The witness, so-and-so, should be punished, but considering the small amount obtained, he will be fined by performing a play to atone for his crime. The monk so-and-so died before the incident could be dealt with, so there is no need to punish him." After writing this, she threw down the pen and lay down. After a while she got up and resumed her normal behavior, as if nothing had happened. Her husband followed her instructions without question. From then on, the offerings to the land god in Tangli became more frequent. The black fish spirit of Poyang Lake. A black fish spirit caused trouble in Poyang Lake. When a boat carrying a traveller passed by, a sudden dark wind arose, and the water rose several feet high. A fish's mouth, as large as a mortar, appeared on the surface, spitting waves into the sky, and the traveller died. The traveller's son vowed to kill the fish to avenge his father. After several years of trading, he became quite wealthy and went to Longhu Mountain to pray to the Celestial Master. The Celestial Master, being old and sick, told him, "To eliminate monsters and demons, one must rely on pure energy and true power. I am old and dying, unable to help you, but moved by your filial piety, I will ask my son to do it in my place." Soon after, the Celestial Master indeed passed away. A year later, the traveller's son went to pray again. The little Taoist said, "Indeed, my father left me with a last wish, which I dare not forget. However, this demon is a black fish that has inhabited Poyang Lake for 500 years and possesses great supernatural powers. Although I have talismans and magic spells, I must also have the assistance of a celestial official with divine power to accomplish this task." He took out a small bronze mirror from his bag and handed it to Shu, saying, "Use this to reflect people. If anyone has 3 shadows, come and inform me immediately." Shu followed his instructions and examined everyone in Jiangxi. Indeed, each person had only 1 shadow. After a month of intensive searches, he suddenly noticed a young boy from the Yang family in a village who had 3 shadows, and he reported this to the Taoist. The Taoist sent people to the village and generously rewarded the boy's parents, claiming to admire the boy's talents and inviting him to his residence to test his abilities. The boy, coming from a poor family, gladly accepted. The Taoist provided for the boy for several days before taking him, along with Shu, to Poyang Lake, where they built an altar and recited incantations. One day, the Taoist dressed the boy in ceremonial robes, tied a sword to his back, and suddenly threw him into the lake, to the surprise of everyone. The boy's parents cried out for his life, but the Taoist laughed and said, "There's no harm." Soon after, with a thunderous noise, the boy emerged from the water, holding the head of a large black fish. The Taoist had people carry the boy back to the boat, and his clothes remained dry. The water in the lake turned blood red for a distance of 10 miles around. Upon returning, the boy recounted what had happened. He said, "I fell into a deep sleep and felt no pain. All I saw was a general in golden armor handing me the fish's head and holding me above the water. I know nothing else." From that day on, Poyang Lake was free from the blackfish menace. Some say that this boy was none other than Yang Qingke, a prominent official of the time. In Xinjiang County of Jiangxi, 2 sisters were married on the same day. A strong wind caused confusion during the wedding procession, resulting in the younger sister being taken to her elder sister's home instead of her own. It was only a day after the weddings that the mistake was discovered. Both families accepted this as fate and lived on in peace without any complaints. The younger sister's husband, Mr. Jin, was traveling across Poyang Lake when he suddenly told his companions, "I will soon become an official and take up my post." They laughed at him, thinking he was joking. After traveling a few more miles, Mr. Jin exclaimed joyfully, "The servants and horses are already coming to greet me. I cannot stay any longer." With that, he jumped into the water and died. That night, villagers near the lake saw a man appear in front of their village and declare, "I am the little god of Poyang Lake. It is only fitting that you offer me sacrifices in the form of blood. You should build a temple to worship me." After saying this, he disappeared. The villagers hesitated at first, but eventually built a temple to honor him, and their prayers were always answered promptly. Soon after, the little god appeared again and demanded, "How can a deity have no consort? You must quickly build a statue of a goddess to accompany me." The villagers complied, and a statue of a goddess was constructed. When Mr. Jin's family learned of his death, they fished out his body and prepared for his funeral. Suddenly, his wife donned fine clothes, looked radiant, and appeared very pleased. Her in-laws scolded her, saying such attire was not suitable for a widow. She replied, "My husband is not dead. He is now serving as an official outside Poyang Lake, and the servants have already come to greet me. Why should I not wear festive clothes?" With that, she pretended to get into the bridal chair, and then closed her eyes. From then on, the little god of Poyang Lake became well known, and people from far and wide came to worship him. Jiang Yunxi, who lived outside the south gate of Tongcheng, was a devout believer in gods and Buddhas. While passing by an ancient temple, he saw a beautifully carved wooden statue of a deity and brought it home to worship in his family's hall. One night, he dreamed of a deity resembling the statue, who identified himself as Master Ling Jun. Jiang became even more devout from then on. A neighboring woman was plagued by a supernatural creature with a hideous appearance and hair-like growths all over her body. Every time she had intercourse, she suffered intense pain. She begged for mercy, but to no avail. The strange creature said, "I am not here to harm you, I merely adore your beauty." The woman retorted, "There are other women in my family who are even more beautiful than you. Why don't you pursue them instead of tormenting me?" The creature replied, "Those women possess noble virtues. I dare not offend them." Enraged, the woman cursed, "Just because they have noble virtues, does that mean I don't have any?" The creature then said, "On such and such day, you burned incense at the city god's temple. A man was passing by, and you secretly peeked through the curtains of your carriage. You admired his handsome appearance. How can that be considered noble virtue?" The woman blushed and was unable to respond. Her mother reported the incident to the local magistrate, who sought help from the household deities. That night, the magistrate dreamed of a deity who said, "This creature is unknown to us. I will give you 3 days to find a solution." When the time limit passed, the deity indeed appeared and explained, "This creature is named Nang Nang, and it possesses great supernatural powers. Only I can personally eliminate it. However, even deities need human assistance to accomplish this task. Choose a day for the ritual, prepare a carriage, 4 men to carry it, 4 quick-handed helpers, and 8 tools, such as ropes, knives, and axes. Also, prepare some paper cutouts. When the time comes, stand by and shout, 'Lift the carriage!' Then shout, 'Cut!' This should eliminate the creature." The 2 families followed the deity's instructions. On the designated day, those carrying the paper carriage felt that it was much heavier than usual. Upon arriving at the woman's home, they shouted, "Cut!" and paper knives spun around like wind, making a whistling sound. A creature flew past, hitting the wall. The woman immediately felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted from her. When the family members pursued it, they saw a creature dressed in a coir raincoat, about 3 feet long, with thousands of thin legs that sparkled like shining threads. It was split into 3 pieces upon impact. When burned, its stench could be smelled for miles. The people of Tongcheng did not know the name of this creature. It was only later, after consulting a book on unusual creatures, that they learned it was known as the coir raincoat worm, or Nang Nang. Later, another encounter with this creature occurred. Zhong Wu, a virtuous man from Changzhou, had lived a life of kindness, but had no children in his old age, and faced financial difficulties, which made him very unhappy. As he lay dying, he instructed his wife, "When I die, do not place me in a coffin. I have an injustice to lodge with the king of the underworld. Perhaps there will be some response from the spirits." With that, he passed away, but his heart was still warm. His wife followed his wishes and laid his body out accordingly. 3 days after his death, Gorsu said, "After I died and arrived in the underworld, I saw that the people coming and going there were just like those in the living world. I heard that there was a king named Li who was in charge of rewarding the good and punishing the evil. I asked someone to guide me to his court so that I could present my grievances. Upon arriving there, I saw a magnificent palace with a respected official sitting inside. I approached him, introduced myself, and recounted all the good deeds I had done throughout my life, for which I felt I had not received any reward. I also blamed the gods for being unresponsive to my prayers. The god laughed and said, "I am aware of your good and bad deeds. However, your poverty and lack of children are matters beyond my knowledge and not within my jurisdiction." I asked. "Then whose jurisdiction are they?" He replied, "They fall under the domain of King Su." I realized that Li meant reason and Su meant fate. King Su is very dignified. Unlike my court, where no one would stop you at the door, I am currently engaged in important matters that need to be dealt with King Su. You may accompany me. After a while, we heard the sound of a procession. The officials and servants following us were all orderly and solemn. Halfway there, we saw ghosts who complained about various injustices. Some said they had suffered unjustly and their grievances had not been redressed. Others said their enemies had not been punished, and there was a beautiful woman pulling an ugly man, complaining that they were mismatched as husband and wife. Finally, there was a man dressed like an emperor, with a crown and a jade belt. He looked majestic, but his clothes were soaked. He said, "I am King Zhao of Zhou. Our ancestors from Hoji and Gongyu onward accumulated virtue and kindness. My great-grandparents, Wen, Wu, Cheng, and Kang, were all wise and virtuous. Yet when it came to me, I was unjustly killed by the people of Chu during a southern campaign. Fortunately, a brave warrior named Xin Yu managed to pull my body back for burial in the ancestral capital of Zhou. Otherwise, I would have been eaten by fish in the river. Although later Duke Xiao of Qi tried to investigate, it was only a perfunctory effort to fulfill a formality. Such an injustice has gone unredressed for 2,000 years. I hope the gods will investigate this for me." King Li agreed. Hearing this, the other ghosts became angry. I then realized that there were many other great injustices in the world. My own poverty seemed trivial in comparison, and my anger subsided. After a while we heard a call, and King Su appeared. He greeted us, and they began to talk in the carriage. At first, their conversation was gentle, but soon it turned into an argument that became indistinguishable. Then 2 gods got out of their carriages and started fighting with fists. King Li gradually lost the fight, and the other ghosts joined in to help him, but we still could not defeat them. Enraged, King Li said, "You shall report this to the Jade Emperor for punishment." Immediately afterwards, they soared into the clouds, and the 2 gods disappeared. After a while, 2 fair ladies in celestial attire descended from the clouds, carrying golden cups and delivering a decree. "The Jade Emperor oversees the affairs of the 36 heavens and has no time to listen to such minor complaints. We are offering these 2 gods a cup of heavenly wine, a total of 10 cups. Those who can drink the most will have their grievances resolved." King Li was overjoyed and claimed he could drink the most. After 3 cups, he felt nauseous and wanted to vomit. King Su drank 7 cups without showing any signs of drunkenness. The ladies said, "Do not go yet, wait until I report back." After a short while they descended again and delivered another decree. "Reason often cannot overcome fate. This has always been the case. From this you should understand that among all the gods, ghosts, saints, heroes, talented men, beautiful women, jewels, fine fabrics, famous writings, paintings, and so on, some are favored at certain times, while others suffer misfortune. King Su oversees 7/10 of these matters, while King Li oversees 3/10. Because King Su can drink so much, he often gets drunk and behaves recklessly. Even the events of solar eclipses and meteor showers in the 36 heavens are controlled by King Su, and I cannot make decisions regarding them, let alone King Li. However, since King Li can drink 3 cups, there is still some justice in human hearts, and the way of heaven, good and evil, right and wrong, that will continue forever. Although Zhongmiang's life was over, if the truth about this matter were not made known to the world, more and more people would continue to file complaints in the future. Therefore, out of mercy, his lifespan was extended by another decade, and he was allowed to return to the living world. However, this would never be repeated in the future. After hearing this, Zhong's soul was restored to his body. 12 years later, he passed away. People often said, King Li had a handsome and elegant appearance, just like the Wenchang deity depicted in paintings. King Su, on the other hand, had an unattractive face, with his ears, eyes, mouth, and nose not very clearly defined. Among his followers, there were a few who were somewhat beautiful and endearing, but his party members did not hold him in high regard. Zhong's original name was Hu. From then on, he changed it to Wu. The god of gambling, known as Milong Ni Mu, was an official in Yun County. He was involved in gambling, yet he was so addicted to it that he couldn't stay away for even a single day. On his deathbed, he still tapped his elbow and called out for gambling. His wife, weeping and admonishing him, said, "Why bother yourself with such exhausting activities?" Li replied, "Gambling is not something one person can do alone. I have several companions who also gamble with me. You just haven't seen them yet." Soon after, he breathed his last. Suddenly, he came back to life and reached out to his family, saying, "Quickly burn some paper money for me to use in gambling." His wife asked, "Against whom will you gamble?" He answered, "In the underworld there is a gambling god named Milong, who has thousands of gambling ghosts at his command. When a person is about to be reborn, they ask Milong to place a mark on them, which is then placed inside the heavenly spirit cap. Once a person is born, they become addicted to gambling, and even strict fathers and virtuous wives cannot save them. According to the Book of Han, biographies of high officials, more than a dozen nobles lost their titles due to gambling. This god has existed since ancient times. Some people, obsessed with gambling, will give up delicious food to others, or allow others to sleep in their beautiful wives' beds, all because of Milong's influence. However, the rules of gambling in the underworld are different from those in the human world. More than 10 ghosts gather to roll 13 dice. If one die shows a color with golden light, that person wins, and all the ghosts offer their paper money as a reward to Milong. Milong then takes a large share, leaving the losers in extreme poverty. These losers come to the human world and cause plagues, deceiving people into giving them food and drink. If you burn 10,000 pieces of paper money for me now, I may be able to return to life. His family believed him and did as he said, but Li soon passed away. Some say that he used this opportunity to gather more gambling funds and thus did not truly return to life. The Goat Bone Monster. Li Yuangui, a man from Hangzhou, worked as a clerk in the government office of Hangong in Pei County. A relative returning to Hangzhou asked him to carry a letter home, and Li asked the servant to prepare some dough for sealing the letter. After Li used it, he left the remaining dough on the table. At night, they heard rustling noises, thinking it was mice coming to steal the dough. Upon checking, they saw a small goat, about 2 inches tall with white fur. After the goat ate all the dough, it disappeared. Li thought he must have been hallucinating. The next night, the goat returned, and he observed its path more closely. It disappeared under a tree outside the window. The next day he reported this to his master, and when they dug under the tree they found a rotten goat bone with some remaining dough inside. After burning the bone, such strange occurrences ceased. The night demon steals wine. In Yongping Prefecture's Tunzhou area, every year the Dragon King would build a palace, and 2 dragons, one yellow and one white, would transport wood from the northern mountains. Each log was guarded by night demons throughout the night. These logs floated upright in the water, with a red lantern hanging from each one as a marker. Merchant traders who transported wood relied on these dragons to transport their goods. One year, when a log was lost, the dragons became angry and sent night demons to retrieve it. A fierce storm ensued, with rocks flying everywhere. The villagers made 8 jars of wine, but the night demons drank it all in one night. Fearing further trouble, they cut down a tree and placed it in the water, and only then did the situation calm down. This story was told to me by Zheng Gong, who was the magistrate of Tuanzhou. The hemp-cloaked killer. Cao, a woman from Xin'an, had a grandson named Dong, who was engaged to be married. Before the wedding, they cleaned the building where the bride would live, which was about 10 steps away from Cao's bedroom. Sunset approached, and the old woman sat alone downstairs. She heard footsteps upstairs, which sounded like those of a maid, so she didn't question them. However, as the sounds grew louder, they began to sound unusual, and she suspected they belonged to a thief. She quickly rushed upstairs to catch the intruder. Upon opening the door, she saw a person wearing a hemp hat and hemp shoes, holding a Paulonia cane, standing on a ladder leading to the upper floor. When the old woman appeared, the figure turned and fled. Despite her fear, she pursued after it. The ghost ran into a new room, making rustling noises before disappearing like a wisp of smoke. Only then did she realize it was indeed a ghost. She hurried downstairs, wanting to tell someone about what had happened, but considering that her wedding day was approaching, she chose to remain silent, fearing she wouldn't be able to find another place to stay. The next evening, when the bride arrived, lights were lit and music played, but after everyone left, the old woman couldn't sleep due to the previous incident. The next morning, she saw that the bride was beautifully dressed and sitting by the bed, playing the zither with great skill. This reassured her somewhat, and her worries about moving to another house diminished. Nevertheless, she continued to be wary, not wanting the bride to climb the stairs alone. One day, the bride wanted to go upstairs. The old woman told her it was for using the toilet, but she advised her to use a lamp and suggested taking a different route. After a while, the bride didn't come down, so the old woman sent a maid with a lamp to check on her. However, the maid found no one there. The old woman was terrified. The maid asked if the bride might have gone to the kitchen, but the old woman said she hadn't seen her come down from the ladder. With no other choice, she called her son-in-law and told him about the missing bride. The whole family was shocked. Suddenly the maid called from upstairs, saying, "Mother is here." They looked up to see the bride curled up under a small chair, her limbs seemingly tied. They helped her up. She was frothing at the mouth and barely breathing. After pouring water on her, she finally regained consciousness. She recounted being frightened by a man in a hemp garment. The old woman cried, blaming herself for what had happened, and explained why she kept silent. It was nearly midnight, and they couldn't move to another place, so they let the bride rest in bed while the son-in-law stayed awake with a lamp, with 2 maids standing by her side. By dawn, the servants fell asleep, and even the son-in-law was tired. He dozed off briefly when he felt a figure in a hemp garment break in through the window and pinch the bride's neck several times. The son-in-law rushed to save her, but the ghost disappeared through the window frame as swiftly as a flying bird. The bride didn't respond, and upon checking, she was already dead. Some believe that the bad luck associated with the chosen wedding date caused this tragedy. 2 ghosts under the melon shed. In Haiyang there lived a woman surnamed Liu, who was embroidering under a melon shed on a summer day. As dusk fell, her family laid out mats to cool off. Suddenly, the woman began talking to her own shadow, which surprised them. She shouted, "Am I really like you? I am a woman from another village who died of grief years ago and wished to take someone else's place. That's why I'm here." After speaking, she laughed loudly and then tried to hang herself with her ribbon. Everyone was terrified. They tried to scare her away with rice and beans, but she refused to leave and pleaded, saying she had been forced to work for others, exchanging money for rice, leaving her family in poverty. Since she held no grudges against them, they decided to let her go. She warned them that the heavenly officials would soon arrive if they didn't release her. Fearing her threats, they offered her incense and paper money, which appeased her, and she finally calmed down. However, 3 days later, the woman's sleeves began to move on their own again. She spoke bitterly, saying they were too unkind to her, and that she would seek revenge. She tried to hang herself once more. Her voice sounded different from before. Just as they were alarmed, they heard footsteps under the melon shed and heard her shout, "You wretched ghosts! You're using my name to scam money and harm people? Leave quickly, or I'll report you to the city gods." They comforted the bride's family, saying there was no need to fear, as this ghost wouldn't dare to cause trouble again. Upon finishing her speech, her cheeks turned red with shyness. After a while, both ghosts quietly disappeared. The next day, she once again looked at her reflection in the mirror. When asked about what had happened, she could recall nothing, as if it were all a dream. The old man, surnamed Li, was from Haiyang. As dusk fell, he returned home from town and felt as if there was a heavy object wrapped around his waist. Upon checking, he found nothing there and struggled to carry on his way. By then, the moon had risen. His family heard knocking at the door and came out to greet him, but the old man just stared blankly without saying a word. They prepared food and wine for him, but he refused to eat. This only puzzled them further. Later, he took a piece of cloth, hung it between the beams of the house, and pretended to hang himself, saying, "I am a ghost who has died by hanging. Today, I come to settle my account with your father." Everyone was shocked and questioned him about his past. He replied, "I belong to the Lei family and used to haunt this town. I once plagued a girl under a melon shed. Out of pity for her frailness, I let her go and looked for another victim. However, when I tried to flee through the city gates, the guards were very strict, and I did not dare to pass. I have suffered greatly ever since. There are too many details to tell." The family members asked, "If the guards prevented you from leaving, how could you come back today?" He laughed and said, "That was quite clever of me. This morning a villager left a dung bucket by the gate. The guards, disgusted by the smell, decided to take a walk up the hill to enjoy the view after the rain had stopped. I took that opportunity to escape the city. I attached myself to your father's belt and had him carry me. Desperate to survive, I once again relied on him." Hearing his story, which seemed plausible, they pleaded with him, "Sir, you are old, and your grave is already prepared. Can't you have mercy on this young woman? If you would be so kind, we would invite a famous monk to perform a ritual to help you reach a better realm." The ghost clapped his hands in joy and said, "I had intended to do good by harming that girl before, but seeing how poor her family was, I refrained. Now that these kind-hearted people are willing to make such a great vow, what more could I ask for? Nevertheless, people often deceive ghosts with tricks. I only hope you won't forget what I've said." The family agreed, and the ghost then bowed deeply. After a while, the old man regained his senses and asked for some water to drink. The next day, they invited a group of monks to perform a 7-day ritual, and from then on the area under the melon shed was free from any more disturbances. Yuan Qixie's grave. Yuan Qixie had his wife, Lady Ouyang, buried there. He called upon several feng shui experts to choose a burial site for her, saying, "I have already achieved great wealth and fame. What more could I wish for? I only hope that my descendants will be as successful as I am." The experts agreed. Within a month, one of them reported that there was a suitable burial spot on a certain mountain, where the descendants would be noble and long-lived. Yuan Qixie had the experts inspected. One expert suggested that although the descendants would be noble, their fortunes would only flourish after 6 or 7 generations. Yuan Qixie agreed to the location. Upon digging the grave, they found an ancient tombstone belonging to Yan's 7th-generation ancestor. This event led to the decline of Yan's family, as later recorded by his descendant named Bing Lin. Li Banxian. Li Xuan, a general from Gansu, claimed to be Li Banxian and claimed to be able to predict a person's fate by observing their belongings. Peng Yuan Mei and Shen Yunjiao, both scholars, went to consult him. Peng showed him an inkstone and asked, "This inkstone is solid and octagonal in shape. It's suitable for use in the study, not for military affairs." Shen, holding a silk handkerchief, asked, "This handkerchief is pure and high quality, though its size is small." While they were chatting, another official from Yunnan also came to seek his fortune-telling services and asked about a tobacco pipe. The ghost said that the pipe was made of 3 parts and indicated that the owner would experience 3 rises and falls in his career. Peng and Shen agreed with this prediction. The ghost also warned Peng that he should change his ways in the future and not repeat such a greedy behavior. After hearing this, Peng promised to do so. The ghost then bowed deeply. That very day, the old man recovered and drank some water. The next day, they invited many monks to perform a 7-day ritual, and from then on, the area around the melon shed remained peaceful. Jie Shi's tomb. Yuan Qixie hired several feng shui experts to choose a burial site for his wife, Lady Ouyang. He said, "I have already achieved great wealth and fame. I only hope that my descendants will be as successful as I am." The experts agreed. A month later, one of them suggested a burial site on a mountain, promising that the descendants would be noble and long-lived. Yuan Qixie agreed to the location. Upon digging the grave, they found an ancient tombstone belonging to Yan's 7th-generation ancestor. This event led to the decline of Yan's family, as later recorded by his descendant named Bing Lin. Li Bangshan. Li Xuan, a general from Gansu, claimed to be Li Bangshan and claimed to be able to predict a person's fate by observing their belongings. Peng Yuan Mei and Shen Yunjiao, both scholars, went to consult him. Peng showed him an inkstone and asked, "This inkstone is solid and octagonal in shape. It's suitable for use in the study, not for military affairs." Shen, holding a silk handkerchief, asked, "This handkerchief is pure and high quality, though its size is small." While they were chatting, another official from Yunnan also came to seek his fortune-telling services and asked about a tobacco pipe. The ghost said that the pipe was made of 3 parts and indicated that the owner would experience 3 rises and falls in his career. Peng and Shen agreed with this prediction. The ghost also warned Peng that he should change his ways in the future and not repeat such a greedy behavior. After hearing this, Peng promised to do so. Without his help, it would turn cold in an instant. The man laughed heartily and left in shame. More than 3 years later, when Peng Shuiche completed his term of service and returned to the capital, Li also went there to be introduced to him. Peng deliberately took out his tobacco pipe again and asked, "You have once failed your official duties." Li asked, "Why?" Peng replied, Tobacco is not something to be consumed to one's heart's content. Serving as an examiner in an academy is not a way to become wealthy. Moreover, an examiner spends all day breathing for others, while a supervisor to students spends the whole year offering empty promises to poor scholars. I'm sure you'll fail your next appointment. And indeed, that happened. Li Shangjun recommends a manuscript. My friend Yang Chaoguan, with the courtesy name Hongdu, was from Wuxi and was appointed as the magistrate of Guxi County in Henan Province due to his reputation for filial piety and integrity. During the Imperial examination in the Renshen year of the Qianlong era, Yang served as one of the examiners. After grading the papers and just before announcing the results, he felt tired and dozed off. In his dream, he saw a woman in her 30s with light makeup, a delicate face, a short stature, wearing a blue gown and a black scarf around her forehead, with the demeanor typical of people from the south of the Yangtze River. She whispered to him, "I beg you, sir, pay special attention to the manuscript titled The Fragrance of Osmanthus." Yang woke up in shock and told the other examiners, who all laughed and said, "That's just a bad dream. How could someone recommend a manuscript just before the results are announced?" Yang thought so too. By chance he came across a discarded manuscript that contained the line, "During the season of apricot blossoms, the fragrance of osmanthus fills the air." The essay was titled, "Thanks for the examination's success." Intrigued, Yang read it more carefully. It was indeed well written, with particularly detailed arguments, showing that the author was highly learned. However, since the essay was not outstanding in artistic quality, Yang put it aside. Feeling puzzled by the dream, yet hesitant to recommend it directly, he was at a loss when Mr. Qian Shanong, the chief examiner, ordered all the examiners to search through the discarded manuscripts again. Overjoyed, Yang recommended the Fragrance of Osmanthus manuscript. Mr. Chen treated it as a precious treasure, and it ranked the author 83rd on the list. Upon checking the manuscript, it turned out to be by Ho Wenbao Bao, a former candidate from Shangchu. Ho's ancestor was Ho Chao Zong. Yang realized that the woman from his dream must have been Li Shangjun. He was proud to have met her in his dream and talked about it proudly with others, considering it a remarkable event. The Taoist who came for the gourd. Zhu Xuanchen from Shoushui, whose given name was Wei Hao, was my classmate from the Wu Wu year. His family was quite wealthy. One day, a Taoist with a long beard came to knock on their door. The host asked, "What brings you here, master?" The Taoist replied, "I have a friend who is currently staying at your home. I've come to visit him." Zhu said, "There is no Taoist here. Who could be your friend?" The Taoist pointed to a portrait of Lu Chunyang, hanging in the study, and said, "That's my senior brother. He stole my gourd and hasn't returned it for a long time. I've come to collect what's owed." Saying this, he reached out to take the portrait. Lu Chunyang also smiled and threw the gourd back to him. Upon checking the portrait, there was indeed no gourd left. The host was astonished and asked, "What do you need the gourd for?" The Taoist explained, "A great plague will strike this region during the summer, killing every chicken and dog. I plan to use the gourd to refine an elixir of immortality to save the people here. Those who perform good deeds can use this elixir to buy medicine for themselves and also save many lives, thus performing a great merit." He then showed the host a few pills from his bag. They smelled fragrant. He added, "This mid-autumn month, when the moon is bright, I will return to your home. Prepare fruits and melons for me then. I'm afraid half of the population here will be gone by then." Zhu was moved and asked if he, as a disciple, could perform such a deed. The Taoist agreed, so Zhu gave him 1,000 gold coins. The Taoist wrapped the pills around his waist, which didn't seem heavy at all. He left after giving 10 pills to the host and bowed before departing. The Jew family treated him like a deity, worshipping him morning and evening. That summer, there was no plague, and there was no bright mid-autumn moon. Instead, there was continuous wind and rain. The Taoist never returned. Fires should not kill people, but water should. Once, while traveling by boat on the river, a storm arose, and more than 10 people on the boat nearly drowned. Only Yi fell into the water. A man in a red robe rescued him, and thus Yi was saved. He believed that he had received help from a divine being, and thought that he would surely become very wealthy in the future. However, later, he neglected to take precautions against fire at home, and was killed in a fire. In another story, the city god would not allow a ghost to cause trouble. Jushinu from Taiju was already married, but her husband was away on business as a merchant. One day, under the light of a lamp, she saw a barefoot man wearing a red robe with an ugly appearance approaching her and saying, "I will marry you." Unable to resist, she became obsessed with him and gradually grew pale and thin. When the ghost appeared, she spoke and laughed as usual, but only she could see it. Others could not. Zhu Xinyu's brother-in-law, Yuan Chengdong, who was known for his bravery, took her to his home. For a few days, the ghost did not appear. After more than a month, it returned and said, "So you hid here? I searched everywhere for you. When I found out you were here, I tried to cross a bridge, but the bridge spirit struck me with a stick and prevented me from passing. Yesterday, I had to hide in a bucket carried by someone named Josie, and only then could I make it over. Even if you hide in a stone cabinet now, I can still find you." Yuan and Zhu Xinyu decided to fight back with knives. Whenever Zhu Xinyu pointed to where the ghost was, they would strike there. One day she exclaimed with joy, "I've hit the ghost in the forehead." For several days, the ghost did not appear, but soon it returned and began to haunt her again. Yuan tried to shoot it with a spear, but the ghost was adept at dodging. One day she claimed to have hit its arm, and the ghost did not appear for a few days. However, it soon returned, and after entering the house, threatened her, causing her severe injuries. Zhu Xinyu's father and Yuan Chengdong wrote a petition to the city god. That night, Zhu Xinyu dreamed of 2 men in green holding a document, summoning her for a trial and demanding a fee. They said, "We will ensure your victory in this case. Burn 2,000 coins of tin as thanks to us. Don't ask for too much. In the afterlife, only 20 taels of silver will be awarded. This money is not for our own use, but will be used to set up a shrine for you. Your uncle, Zhao Shan, who had already died, will help distribute it properly. You will see justice someday." Following their advice, they burned the coins as requested. In the early morning, Zhu Xinyu woke up and said, "The case has been settled. The ghost was Ma Da, a sedan chair driver from the East Port. The city god was angered by his evil deeds during his lifetime. So even in death, he was punished severely. He was beaten with a large stick and displayed in front of the temple for all to see. From then on, Zhu Xinyu was healthy and happy, and her family rejoiced. However, within 3 days she became obsessed again, claiming to be Ma Da's wife, Jiang Shi. She accused Zhu Xinyu's father and brother-in-law of reporting her husband to the city god, causing him to suffer and die of hunger. She vowed to avenge her husband. She scratched Zhu Xinyu's eyes, almost blinding her. Zhu Xinyu's father and Yuan Chengdong had no choice but to write another petition to the city god. That night, Zhu Xinyu dreamed of the ghosts again, and the city god appeared. He placed the petition in front of him and said angrily, "Such a cruel couple. They truly deserve to be punished differently. They must be executed by being cut in half. 2 ghosts were ordered to cut them apart with knives. Black smoke emanated from their bodies, and their internal organs and blood were not visible. The city god asked if they should be sent to the land of crows, but he refused, saying, "If such a creature harms humans while alive, it will harm ghosts after death as well. Their evil energy must be eliminated to eradicate the problem." 2 other ghosts were called to fan the remains with large fans, and soon they turned into black smoke and disappeared. The ghost's wife was imprisoned and sent to work as a punishment for the mountain of black clouds, serving as a demon. The original judge was then sent to return Zhu Xinyu to the living world. From then on, Zhu Xinyu lived peacefully, giving birth to 2 sons and a daughter, who are still alive today. The person referred to as Zhu Si, carrying manure, was actually their neighbor. Someone asked, and he said, "Indeed suspicious." One day, when I was carrying an empty bucket back, it felt incredibly heavy on my shoulders.